How about a nice hand for our U.S. candidate, Ed Case?
Friends, fellow Hawaii Islanders, fellow Democrats, with that warm introduction and applause, I've decided to resign from the United States Senate candidacy and run for the mayor of this island. No worry, Billy. No worry, Dominic, I'm not. I'm staying in this race, believe it or not. It's so good to be with you here today. I want to first and foremost introduce my wife and full life partner, Audrey, who's with us right here. For those of you that don't know our life story, of course, I was born and raised in Hilo and have spent 18 years of my life here. Audrey's family is from Konamauka, over on the other side. So when I saw you guys organizing like that, East Hawaii, West Hawaii, I said, well, we got this covered. Just ask us how to do it. We can work this out. Let me first of all say, and I want to get this off my chest, that I regret very much that this is not a side-by-side, a discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, with me and Maisie. I think that that is something that, as you had invited us both to do. And you know, sometimes people ask me, why do you feel so strongly about this? Why is this important to you and to us? And you know, I think that this is a core, fundamental belief of our system and of our party. You know, I remember growing up on the Big Island, and many of you will remember it too, the old days where the candidates would, from our party, would get together and they'd get in a truck and they'd go around to all of the plantation towns and the camps and the cities and the parks around this island, and they'd get to each island, get to each one of those areas, and they'd stand up on the back of the truck and give a speech side by side. And the voters got to check them out up close and personal and decide which one they wanted to choose. And I think that that was good for our democracy, good for our party. I remember growing up in Hilo in the 50s and the 60s where there was hardly any TV at all. A couple of channels, and it was, you know, tape delay. You saw the Super Bowl the next year. And my parents, during election time, would sit around their radio at night. And the candidates would come in and debate and discuss openly, honestly. And my parents would go out there and talk about it around the dinner table. They'd talk it with their friends. They'd talk about it with their families. And that was good for our party, good for our democracy. And I remember, of course, that there have been so many debates already in this election season, including an incredibly great mayoral debate the other night in Honolulu. So they're having no problem debating. And so when I say that this is important to me and to us, I'm saying that debate is good for our democracy, and it is good for our party. It is good for our party because it shows that we're open. It shows that we have an honest discussion. It shows that we are able to produce and sift through the folks that want to lead us. And of course, this is ultimately all about who's going to run against Linda Lingle. So it shows which one of us can do that job. So enough said on that. I think I kind of killed that one pretty well. But let me cut to the chase. This United States Senate election is a critical Senate election. It is critical come November because, of course, it is critical for us to decide who will take over for Senator Akaka in the great work that he has done as a Democrat for our state, for both the people of Hawaii and for our country. It's critical simply because this is our opportunity to replace one United States Senator with another and to decide who can do that job. It is also critical for our state and our party because we are in all likelihood, whoever wins in November, electing the next not only junior senator, but the next senior senator from Hawaii, because that person will probably serve for the next generation. And during that generation, we will likely, I hope Senator Inoue goes on as long and as strong as he possibly can. But over that next generation, we will probably be looking at the person that steps up to the plate to lead this delegation as well. And of course, this election is critical to the future of our country today. I also want to say that on August 11th, the Democratic primary for the United States Senator is a critical election for our party, because in that election, in all likelihood, we will determine whether Linda Lingle will be our next junior and senior senator for a generation. And so August 11th is a critical election for this party. Now let's talk about some of the stakes. Let's talk, when I say the stakes are so high, let's talk about what is really at stake here. Well, let's talk about the fundamental values that we all hold dear for our party. Let's talk about the things that we fought for so hard over the past couple of generations, and then let's translate that for this discussion purposes to the United States Senate, because Bart said something very, very important that we all have to remember. We all have to remember from time to time. The decisions that we make in Washington, D.C. and in the United States Senate matter to people on the ground now. Whether your student loan is going to be doubled matters to a generation. Whether we preserve Social Security matters. And it doesn't just, as he so eloquently said, it doesn't just matter today. It matters for a whole generation. So this is a critical election, as I said earlier, for our country. Politico, I don't know how many people follow Politico, but this is one of those U.S. Government rankings of where the Senate stands and where the races stand. Of course, we don't know how this is all going to play out, but the best neutral minds out there watching the races in the Senate the other day projected that the United States Senate was going to be tied 50-50 at the conclusion of this election. And they assumed that Hawaii was going to be in the Democratic column. They assumed it. So what I'm saying to you is what I've said all the way through, and you know this because you and I have talked about this before. Whether the United States Senate is a Democratic or a Republican Senate could come down to 6 p.m. on General Election Day in the great state of Hawaii, and that's why this election counts. Not just for our state, but for our country. That is what could be decided. So as we see the ripple effects of this election, don't just ripple out there throughout our state through the next 6-year term of a United States Senator. They ripple out there through our state over the next generation for our state, and they ripple immediately out there in the future of our country. And let's talk about some of the issues that would be impacted by a Lingle Senate membership versus a Democrat in the Senate. And let me just list a couple of the issues. I mean, we've all talked about this repeatedly. Let's talk about President Obama. We, of course, all want President Obama for our president for another 4 years. We don't want him to be president again just because he's from Hawaii, although that's a pretty good reason. We don't want him to be president again just because he's a Democrat, although that's a pretty good reason. We want President Obama to be president again because he shares our values, the values of our party and the values of our Hawaii, the best combination out there of all. Hawaii values, party values, democratic values. Equality, not just paying lip service to it, but practicing it. Opportunity, not just saying you wish for somebody in need, a leg up and hey, good luck to you, but actually going out there and working for it. Compassion, meaning that we care for each other. We just don't kind of practice a Darwinistic approach to how we run our affairs, but we want to help people. Tolerance, such a basic individual human right. That I have my beliefs and you have your beliefs, and you can practice your beliefs and I will practice my beliefs, and I won't impose mine on yours and you don't impose them on me, and that's good for our country, and that's tolerance. This is why we need President Obama in office again, and a Democratic Senate majority to help him. And it's not just about resisting the reactionary goals of the other party out there. It's about moving forward from where we are today. This is not a defensive action. This has to be about advancing into the next generation these same values, and we need that in Washington to help President Obama. Let's talk about labor. It is appropriate that we talk about labor right here in Honoka'a. Because as we look across the history of our state, our great state, and I was reminded of this driving up from Hilo this morning through the plantation towns and the camps of Pauilo and O'Okala and Lapuhoihoi and Pepekeo, that those are the places in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s where the fight was fought, the blood was shed, lives were lost. The docks of Hilo in the 40s were where people died for the labor rights that we now hold dear and that we take for granted in this country today. Because over the past couple of generations, so many have gone out there and fought for them. We want them to be preserved and we want them to be advanced. But today we face the forces of reaction that want to take them away. And a Democratic majority in the Senate will do that, and a Republican majority in the Senate will not. And that's why this is important. Let's talk about women. Let's talk about women's rights. My grandmother gave birth to my father 92 years ago in Lihue, Kauai. He just celebrated his birthday. My grandmother could not vote when my father was born. She did not have the right to vote. My mother went to one of the best colleges in the country in the 1940s, a college from which Hillary Clinton graduated a generation later. But when my mother went to that college, she could not enroll in Harvard Law School or any other law school. Why? Was she not smart? Of course she was smart. Was she not capable? Of course she was capable. She was a woman. That wasn't too long ago. That wasn't too long ago. When I was growing up in Hilo, in the 50s and the 60s, a woman did not have the right of choice. Any woman, anytime, any term, anywhere. We have come a long way on women's rights, but we're not POW yet. We've got a far, far way to go. We have the Equal Rights Amendment to pass still, to give women the basic constitutional rights. We have what is, in fact, a war on women going on around our country. And a war on women is a war on us all. But this is not just about women. I feel it as much, I hope, as any woman, that it is an assault on my rights. That the assault on women is an assault on my rights, and it's not a matter of gender. It's because I believe that we have those basic rights of equality and rights to practice our lives the way we want. And these are under attack in Washington, D.C. today. I could go on and on, but the point I want to make here is that as we look at this election, in small towns like Honoka'a, in small places around our island here, far from Honolulu and light years away from our Washington, D.C., the future of our country is being decided, and the choices that we make right here in cafeterias like this, will point the direction that we want to go in the next generation for our country. That's how big the stakes are in this election. That's how big. My candidacy offers you 4 items. We make you 4 promises. First, that we will be a Democrat that will fight for our values in Washington, D.C. Second, that I am a Democrat that will stay in touch with you, always, like I'm doing right here today. This is not about parachuting in from Washington every 6 months and spending a couple hours on the afternoon and hitting the local media and splitting again. This is about talking story. And yes, we do believe in leading over the next generation. And finally, of course, this is a candidacy that can and will beat Linda Lingle. I want to repeat one thing as I close here. This is not for our party or for our country about stopping where we are today and fighting a rearguard action. This is not about bunker mentality of resisting the incredible forces that want to go backwards in our country. It is in part about that, because we are engaged in a great debate over whether our party has the continued right and obligation to lead our state and country. This is about winning because we not only want to protect the gains that we have made, but we are looking for the next battles out there in the future. We are looking to fix the things that still need to be fixed. We are looking to apply our values to solving the problems that we can't even understand yet that Bart talked about, the problems of the next generation. That is why this is so important. Today, I simply ask you to think about it. Think about my candidacy. Go check out my record. I'm reading some stuff about my record that kind of surprises me because it's not my record. We ask you in the coming 98 days until the August 11th primary to think about whether you can see me as your United States Senator and whether you can accept the basic proposition that we will win in November and carry the great democratic tradition of our country forward, not just in Hawaii, but in our country over the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. U.S. Senate candidate Ed Case, mahalo nui.